find it, as a politician, actually embarrassing that this man who's now the Prime Minister of our country has got to have lessons in how to speak?
Margaret Thatcher did. Lee Anderson, Margaret Thatcher, the hero of your former party.
This is not the Matthew Stanley show. You've had your 2 minutes.
You're just talking
Let
nonsense.
me have my 2 minutes. Well, that's up for debate.
Lee Anderson, the no-nonsense Conservative MP, found himself in a heated live TV showdown with Labour leader Keir Starmer. But this wasn't the usual political point scoring. This was raw, unfiltered confrontation. This useless Labour government is doing the impossible. They're actually making things worse. Just look at who's running the country right now, Anderson fired, refusing to hold back. Determined to expose Starmer's past missteps and shifting positions, Anderson came out swinging. The tension in the room was palpable, the pressure mounting with every exchange. What made this moment so gripping? For the first time in ages, a politician was truly held to account. No rehearsed evasions, no political games, just direct, unrelenting scrutiny. Lee Anderson didn't step into this confrontation unprepared. Far from it. He came armed with a meticulously researched arsenal of facts, each carefully selected to dismantle Keir Starmer's carefully crafted image. For weeks, Anderson had combed through Starmer's past statements, voting records, and public speeches, leaving no stone unturned. He wasn't interested in the polished, media-friendly version of Starmer that many saw on TV. Instead, he zeroed in on the moments where Starmer's actions didn't align with his words, where his principles seemed to shift with the political winds. Anderson was ready to expose the contradictions, and this time, there would be no place for Starmer to hide. Anderson's goal was clear. He wasn't about to let Starmer get away with the usual political rhetoric or vague, empty promises that have become all too common in modern politics. He was there to hold him accountable, particularly for the contradictions in his career, his record on Brexit, Labour's stance under Jeremy Corbyn, and his repeated flip-flops on major policy issues. The strategy was simple: expose the inconsistencies and force Starmer to explain himself. This wasn't about playing nice or giving Starmer a chance to smooth things over with a well-rehearsed response. Anderson came prepared to challenge every shift in Starmer's political stance, pressing him to defend his past actions and, in the process, questioning whether he had the conviction to lead at all. The showdown escalated quickly as Lee Anderson zeroed in on one of Labour's biggest weaknesses, its inconsistency. Wasting no time, he pressed Keir Starmer on the party's ever-shifting positions, particularly on Brexit and its leadership under Jeremy Corbyn. Starmer attempted to deflect, insisting that Labour had evolved and was now focused on the future. But Anderson wasn't having it. He demanded specifics. What exactly had changed? And how could Labour be trusted to lead if it couldn't even stand by its own decisions? Anderson highlighted Labour's flip-flopping on Brexit, from pushing for a second referendum to now reluctantly accepting the result. He reminded Starmer of the party's radical policies under Corbyn, policies Labour had failed to truly distance itself from until it became politically convenient. Starmer tried to argue that the party had reformed, that it was looking ahead, but Anderson was relentless. "It's not enough to say you've changed," he fired back. "What have you actually done differently?" The cracks in Starmer's defense began to show. Instead of providing clear, concrete answers, he leaned on vague promises of progress. But the public wasn't buying it, and Anderson knew it. The pressure was mounting, and Starmer was struggling to hold his ground. Anderson didn't hold back when it came to Brexit. He called out Starmer's shifting stance, highlighting how, at one point, Starmer had been a vocal advocate for a second referendum. Yet, once Brexit was officially happening, he conveniently changed his position, now claiming to accept the result.
A few weeks back, he said, a few months back actually, he was talking about releasing the sausages. I mean, I thought it was a slip of the tongue, but he's actually done that. What he's done is he's released some silly sausages, and he's put them in his cabinet. Look who we've got running the country. Free Gear Keir. Rachel from accounts. You know that one, don't you? We've got that famous no-brainer, Angela Rayner. Mad Miliband, the net zero fanatic. And let's not forget our very own mastermind, David Lammy. Yeah. It's not meant to be funny, this thing, you know. He's a proper charmer, isn't he? Like, listen, I hope nobody's filming this. But keep this one to yourselves. We've got over 6,000 villages in the United Kingdom. And if you took the village idiot from every village, right, and put them 6,000 village idiots into Tottenham, David Lammy would still be the village idiot. Yeah?
Anderson pressed him hard. Was this the mark of true leadership or just political opportunism? Starmer struggled to defend himself, offering weak justifications about how times had changed, but Anderson wasn't buying it. He pointed out that real leaders need consistency and conviction, not shifting views based on what's politically convenient. The more Starmer fumbled, the clearer it became. His Brexit stance was nothing more than a calculated move. Anderson didn't let up. He turned his focus to Labour's image under Jeremy Corbyn, directly questioning Starmer's loyalty to the former leader. At one point, Starmer had staunchly defended Corbyn, backing his radical policies and leadership. But now, as Corbyn's popularity had plummeted, Starmer was suddenly distancing himself from the very man he once supported. Anderson laid it bare. This wasn't about principles. It was about saying whatever was necessary to stay in the game.
You're an ex-Labour Party advisor, and Sir Keir Starmer accepting gifts of £100,000. Is he now the UK's #1 scrounger?
No, I don't think. I mean, all MPs, or most MPs.
We're talking about Sir Keir Starmer.
Hospitality, and Keir has taken his fair share. It's fair to say, most of which have come from a Labour member of 30 years standing, a Labour donor, and a Labour peer in Lord Wahid Ali, who's an active supporter of the Labour Party. He's knocked on doors for the Labour Party, just like you and I used to do together, Lee. I have to get it in every time. And the key thing is that they've all been declared. And this week we saw the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards say there was no case to answer. So it's a storm in a teacup.
Storm in a teacup, Emma.
I can't decide which I like more, Free Gear Keir or King of the Cadgers.
Or the Keir Starmer, the granny harmer. What about that one?
Yeah, no, that's not funny though, is it?
No, it's not funny.
None of this is funny, actually. And Matthew's wrong when he says that Starmer's taken his fair share. He has...
Anderson saw this as a fundamental problem. How could voters trust a leader who rewrote his political history whenever it suited him? True leadership, he argued, meant owning one's past, not erasing it when it became inconvenient. He directly challenged Starmer, demanding to know why he now acted as if he had never been part of the Corbyn era. The hypocrisy was undeniable, and Starmer's failure to address it only deepened doubts about his credibility. Anderson wasn't interested in the usual political dance of vague answers and strategic deflections. He insisted on direct, accountable responses, refusing to let Starmer escape the tough questions. It was a rare moment of unfiltered political confrontation, and Anderson made it clear. Voters deserved honesty, not rehearsed talking points. The public's reaction was swift. Social media erupted, with many applauding Anderson for holding Starmer to account in a way few others had dared. Some saw it as a refreshing break from the usual political banter. However, concerns also emerged about Starmer's ability to handle this level of scrutiny. If he struggled this much in an interview, how would he cope under the intense pressure of a general election or a head-to-head debate against Rishi Sunak? The doubts were real, and the spotlight was now firmly on Starmer. Would he rise to the challenge, or was his leadership built on shaky ground? The stakes had never been higher. As the interview wore on, it became clear that Starmer's composure was beginning to crack. His usual calm and controlled demeanor started to fade as Anderson's relentless questioning took its toll. Starmer hesitated, shifted uncomfortably in his seat, and struggled to offer convincing justifications for his past actions. His responses grew weaker, and it was evident that the pressure was getting to him. But Anderson wasn't letting up. He kept pressing, refusing to let Starmer deflect or dodge the tough questions. He honed in on the contradictions surrounding Brexit and Labour's radical past under Corbyn, forcing Starmer to confront the shifting positions he had so carefully avoided. Anderson's persistence proved to be the turning point. Starmer was now fully on the defensive, and the cracks in his leadership were more apparent than ever. This was no longer a debate about policy. It had become an exposure of a leader who could not stand firm on his own record. Anderson's direct approach set a new standard for political interviews. Unlike the typical polite exchanges that often allow politicians to sidestep scrutiny, he refused to accept vague answers or empty rhetoric. His no-nonsense questioning pushed Starmer into a corner, forcing him to face the contradictions in his record, whether he was ready for it or not. For the first time in ages, viewers witnessed a politician being held genuinely accountable. This wasn't about rehearsed sound bites or carefully scripted responses. It was raw, unfiltered political scrutiny. Anderson's approach made one thing clear: accountability can no longer be avoided, and the public deserves to see politicians face tough, uncomfortable questions. This moment signaled a potential shift in how political interviews unfold. No longer could politicians rely on vague rhetoric and clever deflections. Instead, they would be forced to engage with the truth, honestly and transparently, like never before. Anderson's confrontation with Starmer could very well mark a turning point in British politics, setting a new standard where accountability and integrity become non-negotiable. With the general election fast approaching, the pressure is mounting. Starmer and other political figures will need to prove they are more than just opportunists shifting with the political winds. They will need to demonstrate leadership grounded in conviction and consistency. For Starmer, Anderson's sharp questioning was a serious blow to his credibility. If he hopes to maintain the trust of voters, he must confront his political contradictions and offer a leadership style that is both clear and reliable. In many ways, this interview could redefine how politicians handle media scrutiny moving forward, because the public is no longer willing to accept anything less than the truth. Will politicians continue to dodge tough questions? Or will they take a page from Anderson's book and face the public with honesty and clarity? One thing is certain: the days of smooth talk and empty promises may be coming to an end. The bar for political leadership has been set higher, and the public is watching.